You did nothing wrong. You moved into a new house. You answered the door. You said yes to a weekend away. You pressed play on a video. That was enough. The horror on this list does not wait for you to make a mistake. It was already looking before you knew there was anything to find. 5 levels, 10 films, and in every single one, evil found exactly who it was looking for. Level 1. Something is watching. Presence. Directed by Steven Soderbergh, Presence 2024 follows the Payne family, parents Rebecca and Chris, and their 2 teenage children Tyler and Chloe as they move into a spacious suburban home. From the very first frame, something else is already there. The Presence is immediately drawn to Chloe, the younger daughter, who is still grieving the recent death of her close friend Nadia. It closes her bedroom door to shield her from conversations she should not hear. It lingers near her when she cries. While the rest of the family remains oblivious, Rebecca consumed by her own ambitions, Tyler coasting on arrogance and his mother's favoritism, Chloe slowly begins to sense something sharing her space. She calls out Nadia's name in the dark, wondering if her dead friend has followed her here. The danger sharpens when Tyler brings home his new friend Ryan, who begins spending time with Chloe. The tension builds until Ryan's mask slips entirely. He drugs Chloe, confesses to murdering Nadia and another girl by staging their deaths as overdoses, and begins suffocating Chloe with plastic wrap. The Presence frantically awakens Tyler, who charges upstairs and fights Ryan, and both of them crash through the bedroom window, landing dead in the driveway below. The family moves out, but before they leave, Rebecca follows the Presence to a mirror, and Tyler's reflection stares back at her. The Presence in that house was never a stranger. It was her own son, watching over the sister he failed to protect in life. Evil did not move into that house with the family. It was already waiting long before the first box was unpacked. Longlegs. Written and directed by Osgood Perkins, Longlegs 2024 follows Lee Harker, a gifted FBI agent assigned to a cold case involving a series of family massacres spread across Oregon over 2 decades. The pattern is deeply unsettling. In each case, the father of the household murdered his wife and daughters before taking his own life. No evidence of forced entry, no fingerprints, no sign of anyone else ever being there. Just a letter signed Longlegs, filled with satanic symbols, left behind at every scene as if placed by a ghost. As she digs deeper, a chilling pattern emerges. Every targeted family had a daughter born on the 14th of the month. The murder dates, when plotted on a map, form an upside-down pentagram, with one date still missing. The killing is not finished. Lee eventually tracks down and arrests Longlegs, a grotesque, pale-faced figure named Dale Cobble, who claims to serve Satan and speaks in riddles. But arresting him answers nothing, because Longlegs never actually entered those homes himself. The true weapon was a series of handmade ceramic dolls, secretly delivered to each family by a woman posing as a nun, Lee's own mother. The dolls were possessed, whispering instructions to the daughters inside the house until the fathers broke and turned on everyone they loved. When Lee confronts her mother, she shoots her dead. But the final frame holds on Lee standing over the last doll, the one that looks exactly like her, and hesitating. She does not destroy it. The darkness that spent decades shaping events from the shadows has been inside her orbit her entire life. It was never watching from a distance. It was always watching from the inside. Level 2. Evil already lives here. I See You. Directed by Adam Randall, I See You, 2019. Follows the Harper family, Detective Greg, his wife Jackie, and their teenage son Connor, living in a quiet suburban home, already cracking under the weight of Jackie's recent affair. Greg is assigned to investigate the disappearance of a 10-year-old boy named Justin Witter, a case eerily similar to a series of child abductions committed 15 years earlier. But before any answers come from the investigation, the house itself begins to unravel. Items vanish without explanation. A repairman claims he was let in by a daughter the couple does not have. Greg finds himself inexplicably locked inside a closet, and when Jackie frees him, there is nothing blocking the door and nobody else in the room. The family assumes the strangeness is connected to Connor's resentment over his mother's affair, small acts of rebellion, psychological warfare from a wounded teenager. Then Jackie's former lover Todd arrives at the house uninvited, and before the day is out he is dead in the basement with a mug-shaped wound on his head. Jackie, convinced Connor is responsible, persuades Greg to bury the body in the woods to protect their son. Through a stunning mid-film reveal, the story rewinds to show Mindy and Alec, 2 teenagers practicing a twisted game called frogging, secretly inhabiting other people's homes. Alec has been the one moving objects, locking doors, and tormenting the Harpers from inside the house. But Mindy watches something far worse. She witnesses Greg himself murder Todd and realizes that the detective investigating a child's disappearance is the very man responsible for it. The green pocket knife connecting the cold case to the new abduction was never planted by a copycat. Greg was the original kidnapper 15 years ago, and he never stopped. Evil did not break into that house. It paid the mortgage, tucked the family in at night, and wore a badge to work every morning. Marrowbone. Written and directed by Sergio G. Sanchez, Marrowbone 2017 follows four siblings, Jack, Billy, Jane, and young Sam, who flee England with their ailing mother Rose to escape their father Simon Fairbairn, a convicted serial killer known in Britain as the Beast of Bampton. Rose brings them to her remote childhood home in rural Maine, has everyone take her maiden name, and makes Jack promise to keep the family hidden from the outside world until he turns 21 and can legally become their guardian. The house feels like a sanctuary. It is the only thing standing between them and the horror they left behind. Then Rose dies. The children bury her quietly on the property and seal the secret, covering every mirror in the house and boarding up the attic. Jack tells no one, but Simon has already found them. He appears from the woods one night and fires a bullet through the window. And what happens next is something the film deliberately buries beneath months of silence and fractured memory. Jack, it slowly emerges, did not simply hide his siblings from the world after their mother died. He sealed their deaths inside the house. Simon returned, killed Billy, Jane, and Sam, and left Jack with a devastating head wound that shattered his mind completely. Unable to process the loss, Jack fractured into multiple personalities, each one a version of a sibling still alive inside his head, talking to him, arguing with him, keeping him company in the empty rooms of a house full of bodies. When a blackmailing lawyer tears down the boarded attic wall, Allie, the girl Jack loves, climbs up and finds the desiccated remains of all three siblings and the lawyer dying beside them. Simon attacks her before Jack's mind finally breaks open and he kills his father for good. He is taken to a psychiatric hospital, and when released, Allie quietly refuses the doctor's instructions to keep him medicated. Because without the medicine, Jack still believes his siblings are alive. The trauma never left that house. It just learned to wear a familiar face. Level 3. The person you let in. Fresh. Directed by Mimi Cave in her feature debut, Fresh 2022 follows Noah, a young woman from Portland who is exhausted and disillusioned by the cruelty of modern dating apps. Then one evening at a grocery store, a charming and disarmingly normal man named Steve catches her attention. He is warm, funny, and refreshingly present, everything the men on her phone screen are not. After several dates, he invites her on a romantic weekend getaway. Against her best friend Molly's instincts, Noah says yes. Steve stops at his house before the trip and makes her a drink. She wakes up chained to the floor of a windowless room. Steve sits across from her and calmly explains that he is a butcher, not of animals, but of women. He harvests and sells human flesh to an exclusive network of wealthy clients who pay extraordinary amounts for fresh meat. He has been doing this for years. He plans to keep Noah alive as long as possible, removing pieces of her body surgically over time to preserve the quality. When she attempts to escape during a supervised shower, he harvests flesh from her buttocks as punishment. In the adjacent cell, a woman named Penny has already survived multiple harvests. Another woman named Melissa has gone completely insane from the trauma, singing incoherently to herself through the wall. Meanwhile, Molly, refusing to accept Noah's sudden silence, traces Steve's name back to a man named Brendan, married with children, with a wife named Anne, who knows exactly what her husband does and says nothing. Noah, who has spent her captivity studying Steve's patterns and earning his misplaced trust, poisons his drink at a carefully chosen moment. In the chaos that follows, Steve is killed. Noah walks out alive, but the network of wealthy men who paid for those deliveries is never dismantled. The clients are never named. The demand that made Steve possible is still out there, already looking for someone new to answer it. The monster you let in was never working alone. Let the right one in. Directed by Thomas Alfredson, Let the Right One In, 2008, follows Oscar, a quiet and deeply lonely 12-year-old boy living with his mother in a gray Stockholm suburb in 1982. He is relentlessly bullied at school, cornered, humiliated, and threatened daily by a boy named Connie and his crew. At night, Oscar stands alone in the courtyard, stabbing a tree with a knife, rehearsing the revenge he is too afraid to take. Then Eli moves in next door, She appears around his age, pale and barefoot in the snow, and from their very first conversation, something about her is quietly, unmistakably wrong. Eli tells Oscar immediately that they cannot be friends. He pursues the friendship anyway. She teaches him to fight back against his bullies. He teaches her Morse code. They tap messages through the thin wall between their apartments late at night, and Oscar falls completely. He asks her to be his girlfriend. She tells him softly, she is not a girl. What Eli is becomes impossible to ignore. Her guardian Håkan, an older man who lives with her and silently procures blood by murdering strangers in the woods, is caught and disfigures himself with acid to avoid identifying her. When he survives and is hospitalized, Eli climbs through his window, drains him dry, and lets him fall. She is hundreds of years old. Håkan was not the first man she groomed into service. When a local woman named Virginia is accidentally infected and begins transforming, she chooses to let sunlight destroy her rather than live as what Eli is. The film ends at the school swimming pool, where Connie's older brother holds Oscar's head underwater. Eli arrives and dismembers every one of them in seconds. Severed heads, severed arms, blood flooding the water, and pulls Oscar out alive. In the final scene, Oscar sits on a train heading somewhere new, a large box beside him. Eli is inside it. He taps Morse code on the lid. She taps back. They are together now, and Oscar, lonely and desperate enough to love something ancient and predatory without asking too many questions, has just become the next Håkan without realizing it. Level 4. Evil comes looking for you. Host. Directed by Rob Savage, Host 2020 takes place entirely on a Zoom call during the COVID-19 lockdown of July 2020 in London. 6 friends, Haley, Gemma, Radina, Emma, Caroline, and Teddy, have been holding weekly video calls to stay connected through the isolation. This week, Haley has arranged something different. She has hired a medium named Ceylon to lead them through a virtual seance, and she asks everyone to take it seriously. Most of them do not. Ceylon instructs the group to focus and make genuine contact with the spirit before she begins. Gemma, bored and dismissive, invents a story about a school friend who killed himself by hanging. She feels a sudden intense tension around her neck, begins to cry, and then bursts out laughing and admits she made it up entirely. Ceylon's internet cuts out moments later. The remaining friends are still laughing when the atmosphere in each of their homes shifts without warning. Haley's chair is violently dragged backwards by something invisible. Caroline climbs to her attic to investigate a sound. What Gemma's lie did was open a door with no name attached to it, an invitation extended into the void, accepted by something that had been waiting for exactly that kind of careless moment. One by one, the demon finds each participant inside their own home. Radina is dragged off screen and dropped to her death. Caroline's head is smashed repeatedly against her computer. Teddy, who had dropped off the call early, unwittingly rejoins later and is burned alive with his own lighter. Gemma and Haley attempt to escape through a darkened house using the flash of a Polaroid camera to light the way before the demon tears through them both as the Zoom call timer finally expires. The film ends scrolling through the participant list. Every name, every face, every home. The demon did not wait for them to come home. It came looking for each of them separately, crossing every threshold simultaneously, finding them wherever they were hiding. You cannot log off from something that already knows where you live. Knock at the Cabin. Co-written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan, Knock at the Cabin, 2023, follows Eric, Andrew, and their 7-year-old adopted daughter, Wen, who are vacationing at a remote cabin in rural Pennsylvania when a giant of a man named Leonard appears at the tree line. 3 more strangers emerge behind him, carrying enormous homemade weapons, and before the family can react, the doors are forced open and Eric and Andrew are tied to chairs. Leonard and his companions, Sabrina, Adriani, and Redmond, make no attempt to hide what they want. They have each been visited by visions, drawn from different corners of the country to find this specific family in this specific cabin. The message in every vision is the same. The apocalypse is coming, and the only way to stop it is for Eric, Andrew, and Wen to willingly sacrifice one of their own. If the family refuses, they will be the last people left alive on a dying planet. Andrew is convinced it is a targeted attack, that Redmond, who he recognizes as a man who once assaulted him in a bar, orchestrated the entire thing as revenge. But when the intruders sacrifice Redmond first, striking him dead with their own weapons in front of the family, the television behind them erupts with footage of mega tsunamis swallowing coastlines. Each subsequent refusal brings another death and another catastrophe. Adriana is sacrificed and a deadly flu variant tears across the globe. Sabrina is shot and hundreds of planes fall from the sky simultaneously. Leonard, The last one left tells the family their time is nearly gone, and then slashes his own throat. Eric, battered and concussed, makes a decision. He offers himself as the sacrifice. Andrew shoots him. A father who did nothing wrong, who was found in the middle of nowhere by something he never invited and could never outrun, is dead. Evil did not wait for them to come home. It knocked on the door and counted to 3. Level 5. Once it finds you, it never lets go. Oddity. Written and directed by Damien McCarthy, Oddity, 2024, opens in rural Ireland, where Danny Odello Timmis is alone at night in the remote country house she and her psychiatrist husband Ted are renovating. A knock at the door brings a hooded man with a glass eye, Olin Boole, one of Ted's former patients, frantically warning her that someone has already broken into the house while she was not looking. Danny dismisses him and sends him away. That night she is brutally murdered. Olin is found dead shortly after, his head crushed beyond recognition, his glass eye the only thing left intact. The case is closed. Ted moves his new girlfriend Yana into the house and begins rebuilding his life. Then Darcy arrives. Danny's blind twin sister runs an antique shop filled with genuinely haunted objects, a hotel bell that summons a violent ghost, a toy rabbit with a life of its own, and she has been quietly using Olin's glass eye to see into his mind, piecing together exactly what happened the night her sister died. On the anniversary of Danny's murder, Darcy delivers a gift to Ted's house, a life-sized wooden mannequin, its face carved into a permanent silent scream, its skull hollowed out and filled with 2 photographs of the twins, a strand of Darcy's hair, a human tooth, and a vial of blood. Ted and Yana place it in a room and try to ignore it. The mannequin does not ignore them back. What Darcy has uncovered is that Ted himself orchestrated Danny's murder to protect his affair with Yana, using Olin as an unwitting witness before having him silenced. Ted lures Darcy to the house under false pretenses and sends her plummeting through a trap door he left open. She dies on the stone floor below, but the mannequin is already moving. Ted walks away clean. Yana leaves him, disgusted, but he is never arrested, never charged. He returns to the house alone and finds a small delivery on the doorstep from Darcy's shop. He opens it. The film cuts to black. What Darcy sent him was never going to let him simply walk away. And whatever is inside that box, it already knows exactly who he is and what he did. Sinister. Directed by Scott Derrickson, Sinister, 2012, opens with grainy Super 8 footage showing a family of 4 standing beneath a tree, hoods over their heads, nooses around their necks, as an unseen figure saws through the branch above them and lets them drop. Months later, washed-up true crime writer Ellison Oswalt moves his wife Tracy and their 2 children, Ashley and Trevor, into that exact house without telling them what happened there, because he intends to write his next book about the murders. In the attic, Ellison finds a box containing a projector and several reels of Super 8 film labeled as Innocent Home Movies, Sleepy Time 98, BBQ 79, Pool Party 66. Each one is a snuff film. A different family murdered in a different city across several decades, and lurking in the background of every single frame, half hidden in water, standing in shadows, watching from the edge of the screen, is the same pale, hollow-eyed figure. Ancient drawings eventually identify him as Bughul, a pagan deity who kills entire families to take their children into his realm and consume their souls. Ellison burns the films and flees back to his old house, convinced he has cut the connection. Professor Jonas calls moments later with a devastating detail. Bughul lives inside the images themselves. Every time Ellison watched those films, he was not investigating Bughul. He was letting Bughul in. The box and the films have already reappeared in the new attic. Ashley, his young daughter who paints on her walls, has been chosen. In the final scene, Ashley murders her entire family with an axe while they sleep, drags their bodies to the backyard, and buries them, just as every chosen child before her has done. Bughul steps out of the darkness behind her and stares directly into the camera. Evil did not follow Ellison home. It was inside every frame he chose to watch, and the moment he pressed play, the ending was already written. And that's the list. If you are choosing where to start, Host is the one, a demon that finds every single person in their own home before the timer runs out. If you want something that crawls under your skin, Longlegs is the film. And if you are ready for the most devastating film on this entire list, Sinister is waiting. Drop a comment telling me which level found you first. Hit like and subscribe. More horror breakdowns coming soon.